last time we finished on creating the main pages for our app here, including the loading error and empty state pages, together with the home and favorites pages also. So now we are basically done with all of the main screens that we had to create. But that's not all that we need for a mobile app. For a mobile app, you also need something called a splash screen or an introduction screen. So we're going to be creating that, and it's going to be a three-step introduction screen with a final welcome screen. Okay, so I'm now gonna be creating any advanced illustrations here just because I know like most of you are just getting into mobile app design and you can't really be getting quality assets cheaply. So I'm just going to keep it very simple with you, and I'm going to show you a method that we can use to create splash screens without having to rely on illustrations and external assets which might be expensive. Okay, so let's just start here. I'm just going to take this first screen here and I'm just going to duplicate it, and let's just align it perfectly before we start designing on it. I'm just going to change it to splash 1. Okay, so splash 1 basically means we're going to be having 4 splash screens, and that is going to be splash 1, splash 2, splash 3, slash 4. Okay, so this is the first one. Now I'm just going to start by removing everything here, removing everything except for the status bar here, since the status bar is a common element of all screens, and that's just a representation of the actual mobile app that we're going to be using. Okay, so we're at this point where we could just continue or start here, and the way we're going to be doing this is we're going to be starting by actually I was thinking of the splash screen here, and it might not be included on in some cases. Uh, just wanted to know for you to know that Splash status bar is not always included. There are some apps that use full screen mode. So when I was saying that it is always common, I mean for our design here. But we're going to be continuing here with sort of a nav bar. Let's start from the nav bar here. And for the nav bar, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this nav bar here. I'm just going to duplicate it, bring it over here, but I'm not going to be using the same nav bar. I'm going to right click and click detach instance. And this instead will be the nav bar for Splash. So it's going to be a completely separate nav bar item here. So I'm just going to write out something here, and I'm going to call it eRadio. So that's the name of the app that we have been building. And for the size, I'm thinking to make it semi-bold with the base. So that's very nice. Now we can take these two, group them. This will be the identity frame, which is the logo with the name. Also 8 pixel gap here and hot content. Now we're not going to be needing any sort of navigational menu here. In this case, we're just going to be needing a skip call to action, and it's going to be very light here. It should probably be just 14 pixels here, which is the base. Then I'm going to give it a color of the gray 700, which is the base text color here. So I'm just going to cut this, Control X, and here I'm going to paste and replace Control Shift R. And then let's take this actually and just align it here perfectly. Great. So now we have our navbar. You know that this means that we have to just cut it from here, go back to components, and I would like to add this to our components by just duplicating one of the frames. Control Shift R. And finally here, we can call this navbar splash. Then we can just take this and create a component out of it. I'm just going to copy it now, go back to design, paste it here. center it, and align it to the top of the screen right here. That's good progress. Now we have to be creating some more elements. The first thing that we want to create is our buttons here. And if you remember, we have already created some buttons here. This is the primary button. We can just use this. See, this is the use of just creating reusable components. When the time comes where your design is becoming larger and larger, you can just uh, use your buttons without having to worry about recreating them again and again. So I'm going to go back to design. Here, I'm going to need our rulers here. And I'm just going to place it right here at the left side of the ruler. And I'm just going to take it and make it long enough to fill the screen. Now, I'm just going to name it here. I'm just going to call it continue. And we're just going to have to go back to components, and I'm going to duplicate this. Let me take this up here. And this is going to be our primary secondary button here. Let's just align them perfectly. Okay. This is going to be the secondary button. So the only difference being that we want to change the black to white, and we want to change the brand color here to the gray 400, I believe. Or is it 300? I think it's 400. Let's just check here first. Okay, it actually was 300. So I want to go 300 and I want to go copy this, get it to the design, paste it. Okay, actually, let's just go back. Make sure we copied the secondary BTN. We should also rename it. So let's just copy it. Go back to design. Actually, there shouldn't be any gaps here. And just paste it here. So I want to get down here and I want to write go back to return to a previous splash screen. Now, since there isn't really any previous splash screen, there won't really be a go back button here that is active. So we would have to include that when we actually work on the button states. So we should have an inactive button state for this one. So we're going to be working on that when the time comes. But for now, I'm just going to include it here and just align it perfectly. And then let's take these two, group them, and I'm going to give them like 16 pixel or maybe 12 pixel gap. Sorry about that. 12 pixel gap here looks fine. Okay, following this, we can actually continue on the actual indicator for which splash screen we are on currently. So I'm just going to drag out a couple of circles here. So let's make these circles 16 by 16, look the aspect ratio. And I'm just going to duplicate this 4 times, indicating each time which part of the splash screen we are currently on. So then I'm going to create, give them the color wave 400. And I'm just finally just going to go here and apply the brand 500 color to the first one, indicating that we are currently on the first splash screen. And looking at these, they seem to be pretty big, so let's just decrease their size to around 12. Also, let's rename this BTNs or CTAs. This should be a page indicator, so just page. Okay, around 6 gap, I think, or 4, maybe 5 or 6. I think 6 works better here. So I'm just going to keep it at 6 for now. Here, I'm just going to call this page indicator. And what I want to do is I want to cut it and I want to create a component for that. I'm just going to duplicate this, bring it down here, rename this page indicator. And I'm just going to paste it. Actually, just remove the first one here and paste this. So I'm just going to create a component out of it, copy it back to the side here. Okay, let's take these two here and just now copy them. This will be the bottom part here. From this one, and name it bottom. So since that was 12, I think 24 would be better here. Then from the bottom, I want to give it 16 pixel gap, or maybe a bit more, around 20. Just for it not to stick to the bottom here. You don't want that. You want enough spacing from the top screen of the screen and the bottom of the screen. And following on from this, we need two more elements. The first is a description of the current page. So I'm just going to write eRadio actually lets you listen to thousands of radio stations. Okay, let's just take this back. Radio stations through a single Wi-Fi connection. Sure. Okay. Now I want to make this fairly minimal here, so I'm just gonna go with the base here. You can see like we are using the base font most of the times here, except for some exceptions, I think, where we are using the smaller font instead. Yeah. So now I want to just take this full white. I want to center align it. And I want to give it some bit of space. I want it to be on 2 lines actually, instead of it being on 3 lines. That would just make it easier for the user to read across it. And it looks better, I think, in general. Okay, so we want to give this the full width maybe here, maybe not, just around here, I think would be nice. Okay, final one and the most important part is going to be your actual screen representation. So your actual assets, your actual accent here. So the accent is what drags people in. This is one of the most important parts of your presentation. So the splash screens are generally just considered presentations for your website. And this is very important, a very important part. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the home frame here, the home layer, and just you can actually just copy or paste as and copy as PNG. Okay, so at this point you can just paste it here and reduce its size so we have a complete PNG of the main image here. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to take this, put it inside of a frame, and we want to have 16 zero gap first of all, and 16 by 16 padding, and we want to have a stroke. Now we want to have a corner radius that is equivalent to the small corner radius. So now when we apply the stroke here, which will actually be a color gradient here. So let's start from our base color and increase to around 24, I think would be nice. Then we, instead of inside, we're going to make it outside. Great. So we have this frame, right? So the reason we needed the extra padding is because if there was no padding, it seems cluttered. But if there is extra spacing here, it seems that the UI is presented much nicer. So just make sure that there is no fill, or if there is a fill, you just make sure that it's the gray 100 so it matches with the background of the image. Now, while you can leave it here, I'm just going to do something here. I'm going to apply a radial gradient, and it's going to be from our brand color to white. Flip it, then drag the center here to the top left, or something resembling that here, just for there to be some extra glow, right? So this is very nice. Now we can just take these two. This will actually be called the presentation. So let's sorry, let's take these two elements and give them a life around 24 spacing. Now, since there is 24 here, it appears to be 0 since border corner actually strokes are not counted as parts of the spacing. So we're just going to add 24 here. So now this is very good. What we want to do is we want to take 1, 2, and 3 and just group them into a frame here. And just make sure that the frame is within our rulers. Then we're going to name this May. And that's pretty much it for the first splash screen. Let's just remove the rulers and look at it. Now it's a very simple splash screen, not very complex, but we didn't need any sort of illustrations or anything like that to make it very interesting and to make it work very nicely for our purposes. So next time we're going to be continuing with designing the splash screen by designing the rest of them. But I think that's quite enough for today. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry for the audio. I have a bit of a cold here, so my voice might be stuttering and cracking around. Thanks for watching anyway. We're going to be continuing on the design next time. Yeah, goodbye.